Hello, everyone. Welcome to the X-Ray Genius webinar. My name is Andinet Enquobahrie. I'm a Senior Director of Medical Computing at Kitware, and I lead the medical computing team here. So we appreciate all of you joining us today. Today, I'm joined by David Allemang. He's a Senior R&D Engineer at Kitware. David brings extensive experience in medical imaging and software development. And he'll be leading the demonstration of X-Ray Genius software, showcasing some of its capabilities and real-world applications. I want to remind everyone throughout the webinar, we encourage you to engage with us by asking questions. You can use the Q&A feature in the webinar platform to submit your questions at any time. Please note that questions that you submit through the Q&A are only visible to the organizers, and we will address them as many as possible during the session. If you'd like to interact with other attendees, please use the chat feature, which is visible to everyone. We will be sharing a recorded video of the webinar after the webinar, and also we'll share the slide. So you don't have to take any notes. So with that, we'll get started. And I know some folks are joining, trickling in. So as we wait for everyone to settle in, I'd like to give a brief introduction to Kitware. Kitware is a leading provider of software and AI R&D services, working with customers in government, industry, and academia. We work in different areas: computer vision, medical computing, scientific computing, and high-performance software solutions. Um, We've about 220 employees across 6 offices in the US and Europe. David and I are joining from the North Carolina office today. Besides our software expertise and leadership in open source software, we do have deep expertise and subject matter expertise, with more than 65% of our staff holding a graduate degree in different areas. At Kiteware, a lot of the work we do is highly dependent on open source software. We believe in the power of open science and driving innovation and collaboration accessibility. We have a wide range of open source tools from our technical areas. Some of the key platforms that you probably know: CMake is a widely used build system that simplifies software compilation and management. VTK and Paraview are our industry-leading visualization tools. We actually will be using VolView that uses VTK.js for the intuitive visualization as part of X-Ray Genius. So these open source platforms are widely adopted by researchers and government agencies, and X-Ray Genius uses some of these tools for the application development. X-Ray Genius has been developed by a very close collaboration between the medical computing and data analytics group. The medical computing team is dedicated to developing solutions that advance healthcare, medical imaging, and surgical planning. Our expertise spans a lot of different domains: image-guided surgery, computational physiological modeling, and also AI development. The data analytics team, they build advanced data systems leveraging expertise such as cloud deployment, data management, DevOps, and machine learning ops. Their solutions support various domains like bioinformatics, neuroscience, and geospatial analytics beside medical computing. So by integrating the tools and expertise from both the medical and the data analytics team, we were able to build this scalable and streamlined software solution, X-Ray Genius, that we will be talking about today. All right. With that out of the way, again, I just want to remind everyone throughout the webinar, we encourage you to engage with us by asking questions. You can use the Q&A feature in the webinar platform to submit your questions at any time, and we'll be able to address them. And again, we'll be sharing the recorded video and the slides at the end of the webinar, so you'll have that for your reference as well. So before we dive into the details, let's quickly take a look at our agenda for today. We'll start by introducing X-Ray Genius. what is X-ray Genius, what problems is it designed to address, and what are some of the most important applications that X-ray Genius could be used. Then we will explore some key use cases demonstrating how X-ray Genius is applied in some of real-world clinical and research settings. Next, we'll take a look at the architecture of X-ray Genius. It's a technology that can be used and deployed on the cloud or in a local system. So we'll talk about the different technologies that are being used. Following that, David's going to give a live demonstration of X-ray Genius, and you'll be able to see it X-ray Genius in action. Then we will follow up with some of our plan in what we're going to do and some of additional development work that we have. And at the end, we'll provide some next steps how you can get involved, access X-ray Genius, and also collaborate with Kitware on future developments. All right, so let's talk about what was the motivation behind X-ray Genius. As a lot of you know, X-ray imaging for diagnostics and screening purposes, especially for lung cancer and other respiratory diseases, are widely available. So there's no lack of accessible data for that type of application. However, for interventional and minimal invasive procedures, there is a stark lack and shortage of X-ray images because these procedures like catheter-based interventions, spinal surgeries, and other precision-guided treatments, a lot of the images don't get archived and then not available for AI development. So our goal is to bridge the gap by building synthetic X-ray imaging software that researchers and medical device developers can use to generate synthetic images for their research project. So what's X-ray Genius? So X-ray Genius is an advanced tool for synthetic X-ray image generation. It creates realistic and high quality X-ray images that can be used for a variety of applications. And it will enable a lot of AI development in medical imaging. So who would X-ray Genius benefit? Who are the target users for X-ray Genius? Radiologists could really benefit from X-ray Genius. They can use it for generating and looking at enhanced data set to support research and diagnosis. AI researchers can use X-ray Genius to generate synthetic images for fine-tuning their deep learning models. Medical image professionals and also medical device development companies for doing device planning and testing before deployment. Just to go over some of the concrete areas X-ray Genius can be used. For example, we have customers that are looking at using X-ray Genius for education training. For example, when you looking to have a training on real-world use of C-arm scanning training, X-ray Genius is very useful. It has a very intuitive visualization that can be used. If you're looking at what are the ways to do proper positioning of patient within X-ray scanner, X-ray Genius is very powerful for helping users experiment with different patient orientation, beam angle, and positioning techniques to really understand the impact on the imaging outcome. Real-time visualization is one of the areas that's very X-ray Genius can be used. X-ray Genius has the ability to adjust different X-ray acquisition parameters and see immediate feedback. This real-time interactivity helps users understand the effects of different setting on image quality. Of course, the whole thing about having synthetic images is it provides a safe and cost-effective way of generating images radiation-free, risk-free, and for doing working on AI development. So when we look at the role of X-ray Genius in AI and machine learning, we can use X-ray Genius to generate a large data sets of images that you can use for training your AI models. You can, and we have also customers using X-ray Genius for generating labeled synthetic images for 2D to 3D reconstruction. So X-ray Genius supports AI-driven depth estimation and volumetric reconstruction that's critical, especially in the orthopedic industry. By generating a wide variety of synthetic images at different conditions, you'll be able to train an AI model that has better generalization. And of course, with by generating synthetic images, you're not gonna have worries or concerns about privacy and compliance, because these are synthetic images, not actual patient data that you can be able to generate and use in your AI research. All right. So with that, before we dive in a little bit on into the specific use cases of X-ray Genius, I would like to pose a poll question here. So let me bring up the first. The first poll question, I hope you can see it, is what's your primary interest in synthetic X-ray image generation? Again, you can choose one or multiple options here. So why don't you take a second to or so to respond to this poll? Yeah, so please take a moment to submit your response, and then we will review the results in just a bit. All right. Yeah, thank you for everyone who participated. As you can see here, most of our attendees would like to use X-ray Genius for generating synthetic data for AI ML model training. And that's actually very consistent with our research collaborators and commercial customers. All right. Thank you. Next, let's go over some use cases of X-ray Genius, and then the first one is on the role of X-ray Genius for building AI models for interventional planning, like in minimally invasive procedures where you have you're looking at an optimized and way of inserting your needle, how these procedures require a very precise needle placement to ensure accuracy, safety, and effectiveness. So X-ray Genius would be very useful for that. So just to give a couple examples, in percutaneous bone biopsy, in this type of procedure, you're looking at detecting some malignancies, infections, or other abnormalities in trauma patients, and AI can assist by providing trajectory guidance, and this would be very useful for interventional radiologists to be able to place the needle with minimum risk. And the second example to provide is if you have some fractured vertebrae, having a way of depositing some bone cement to repair the rupture, the fracture is a very common treatment that's done, and having an AI-driven trajectory planning will help have a more accurate and safe procedure. So as you can see, in both these cases, X-ray Genius can help by generating high quality synthetic images with various needle angles and trajectories. So in that way, the AI model that you're building can learn from different approaches, right? In a way, this will gonna help the clinicians and also the AI developers train AI systems that can predict optimal pathways, reduce procedural risk, and enhance accuracy. And here I just want to show an example of synthetic X-ray images that are generated by X-ray Genius. We'll be able to generate similar synthetic images when we have the live demo. As you can see here, these images show different angles and views and positions of the spine, created by adjusting various parameters such as the distance from the source and object positioning. This is an example how you can use X-Ray Genius to generate large amount of data that simulates various conditions without the need for real patient scans. Another very concrete use case that some of our customers have been looking into is building AI algorithms for optimizing C-arm positioning during intraoperative procedures, right? And this is very important in orthopedic trauma surgeries because proper positioning of the C-arm will be critical to acquire high quality X-ray images while minimizing unnecessary radiation exposure, both for the patient and for the medical staff. So, so let me go back. So, how would X-ray image would X-ray Genius will be helpful? How would synthetic X-rays will be helpful here? By generating a lot of different types of X-rays at different positions, you'll be able to train your AI model on finding the best optimal positioning strategies for these procedures. All right, excellent. So let's move on to our second poll question, and here we're interested to find out what clinical specialty do you work on. We've given you here about 5 choices: orthopedics, respiratory, cardiovascular, oncology, and neurology. So if you can just take a moment to respond to the poll, we would really appreciate it. All right. So I see cardiovascular is the majority, and then respiratory and oncology neck to neck. Excellent. All right. All right. Thank you for responding. And then the next poll question will be: in your work on these clinical problems, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to X-ray imaging? So again, we've given you 5 choices. Is limitation of annotated data set, high cost of acquiring real X-ray images, is privacy and regulatory concerns, difficulty simulating different variations, or also do you have challenges accessing some computational resource? So why don't you take a moment to submit your responses? By the way, you can select different choices that applies to you. So, all right, excellent. So yeah, I see. Not surprisingly, almost all of you indicated that there's limited availability of annotated data sets, and then being able to simulate different real-world variations. And then as we will show very soon, X-Ray Genius is designed in a way to be able to generate a lot of batch X-ray images with different conditions. So thank you. Thank you for participating there. All right. So just a little bit before we dive into the live demo, just want to take a moment to talk about the architecture. So as you will see, we designed X-Ray Genius to be flexible and scalable. And you know and the reason being is our users and people who are interested in using X-Ray Genius have different configuration. So the first part is deployment. So X-Ray Genius can be deployed both on the public cloud or private cloud on premise, or even in a local setup in a local powerful workstation. So if you have a cloud setup, you can run your simulation of the cloud without the need for high-end hardware. In fact, the X-Ray Genius demo that we'll show today is a managed service, and then you'll have an option of configuring X-Ray Genius locally if you have a powerful workstation. Second, to be able to generate X-ray images with different variations, having an intuitive user interface was critical. And for this, you'll see we've designed a very user-friendly interface that helps you easily manipulate different view parameters in such a way that it will abstract out the complex X-ray model process into very simple, intuitive interactions. Next is the actual simulation can be done in different ways, and it was very important for us to design a flexible simulation backend. So X-Ray Genius has a modular backend that supports different simulation frameworks. The demo that we'll show today uses a deep learning based simulation pipeline called Deep DRR, but other types of simulation pipelines can be used as well. And also, as part of using the X-Ray Genius, having a workflow, structured workflow, and a seamless tracking through different simulation was important. And this is going to help enhance productivity. As you'll see, we have user simulation session management, ways of tracking the data that's generated, which really ensures reproducibility and accountability, and makes it a very scalable, efficient, high throughput, high performance synthetic X-ray image generation application. So
Andinet, we did
yes,
have a question.
okay.
Which cloud providers are supported? Are there any constraints on that?
Okay. Oh, thanks for that question. So right now, the demo that we will show is a demonstration of how Exogenous can be deployed on AWS. However, the application can be also deployed on GCP or Azure, or it can be also run locally on a local workstation. So it's a very flexible architecture. It all depends on the what of the users computing resources, availability of computing resources, and also their workflow. All right. Thank you for that question. So if you have additional questions, please again use the Q&A feature within the webinar, and we don't have to wait until the end. So we'll be able to address it while we're going through the presentation and demo. All right. So the X-Ray Genius, it has a user management, all right? So everything which ensures that individual users can securely access and manage their sessions. And this is particularly important for a more personalized workflow because some research groups or even people who are looking to use X-Ray Genius, they might have several researchers, several engineers who want to be running their own simulation session. So having a user management system was critical. The next one is computing resource management, right? And again, it goes back to the question we had where we want to be able to manage the resource available, whether it's a cloud-based infrastructure or local workstation. Then I would say the next three critical core components of X-Ray Genius is session management. So session management helps users track their work, maintain simulation parameters, and resume projects without losing progress. And in fact, David will show how we could go back and look at some of the simulations that we've done. You can start to stop simulation tasks as well. The next one is this interactive visualization interface, right? And this was very important and useful to have an intuitive way of manipulating the view parameters. So we'll be able to visualize the simulated X-ray images and then adjust key settings in real time. So this is a real-time and interactive visualization capability. And third, as I pointed out earlier, we have a simulation backend where you can use different simulation pipelines as part of X-Ray Genius. You might have a completely physics-based modeling simulation pipeline, deep learning based, or even sometimes hybrid. For example, deep DRR is a hybrid simulation pipeline. It uses both machine learning but also physics based modeling techniques to simulate synthetic X-ray images. So the demo that we'll show today is a demonstration of how. So I'll go back. How X-ray Genius can be deployed on AWS. So some of you you probably had a chance to play around a little bit with the online version that we have, that people can create an account, and we have the URL at the bottom, by the way. You can go to that URL, create an account for free, and be able to use pre-packaged sample data to to try out X-ray Genius. So just to spend and just briefly explain the current deployment scenario that we have is we're using AWS to for data storage. We're using S3 buckets to store the data, and then also our workers, EC2 instances, are using GPU runners on AWS. And in this case, we're also using Heroku to manage the database and also all the user sessions. So this is just a demonstration of one way of deploying X-Ray Genius. You might decide, oh, I want to deploy X-Ray Genius 100% on AWS, which you'll be able to do that because AWS can provide you database services and even a RabbitMQ and those type of service. Or you might decide to deploy X-Ray Genius on Azure, right, using their available instances and GPU workers. All right. So one more poll question here is how. I'll bring up the question here. And this has to do with deployment. So the question is, how valuable do you find a cloud-based web application for generating synthetic images compared to a local computing? So we're trying to get a sense of what's the need out there for a cloud-based, a cloud-based X-ray synthetic image generation versus a local workstation. So if you can take a moment and respond to this question. All right. So, I see here slightly valuable and highly valuable. So again, the X-ray Genius has a flexible architecture. You'll be able to deploy it on different ways. So and that's one of the reasons we created flexible architecture. All right, with that, I'm gonna switch over to we're gonna switch over to a live demo. So I'll stop sharing here, David. There you
Hi, thanks, Andinet. So yeah, to kick off the demo, we're focused on the user workflow here. So I've already logged in, and you can see kind of some of the previous sessions that I've done. But the key points here are that you have these sessions that are particular parameters. You might be looking at specific angles or anatomy or things, and for each session you choose your data set, and then you'll configure what viewing parameters or simulation settings that you want to use for that session, and then you can launch it. And so even if it's a long running task, um, you can manage multiple of these at a time. So I have two kind of test cases in this case. So for first, we're going to look at the lumbar spine CT sample data. You can also upload your own files, but I think for the demo, just so that you guys can play with the same data that you see here, I'll stick with these. So you can see once it's loaded the data on the client. So this is running with Volview in the browser. We have a 3D interactive view, and then on the right there's a preview of what the X-ray, what the output would look like. This preview is just rendered in the browser, so it is not as accurate, as the output generated on the back end, but it updates in real time. And so as you edit your viewing parameters, and here we're looking at mimicking a C arm. So the placement is not terribly intuitive at first. So the idea is that we can adjust the different C arm degrees of freedom, um, and be able to kind of see what the subject is. So the first test case is a lateral interoperative view that we're trying to mimic. So the idea is that we want a lateral view of the spine, for maybe we're doing some type of surgery or we need to position a needle and we're trying to train an ML algorithm on that positioning. So we would want to rotate the view to the side to be able to see, we want that lateral view. And then we can adjust the positioning of it here. So we can, lower it a little bit and get the subject in view. And so, and you can fine tune this. And I hope we're kind of demonstrating here that, it is meant to be interactive and iterative. Once you find, what you know that the subject is in view, the thing that you need in all of your data, you can add some variance to that. So like say, different clinicians are going to place the C-arm a little bit differently. So we can add some variation to that. And we can add variation to all of the parameters. You may or may not want variation on different ones. You may or may not want the same variation on them. But for this, I'll just set some, relatively small position variation, and then, a degree of variation on each of the rotation angles. And then you set how many samples you want. So this is the number of images that are going to be generated by the backend. So that it completes in a relatively short time, I'm just going to generate 10. And, with relatively small variations, the images are going to be fairly similar, but you could imagine choosing much larger variations as long as you can interact and check that your subject is always in view. So when you submit this, it adds it to your session list. So it doesn't immediately start running the task. And you can go back and update the parameters, or you can launch the task. And so this is, in the architecture diagram, there is a celery task queue. So when you click run here, you're entering that in the queue. So if you have multiple users, or multiple working, multiple worker instances, it'll distribute that appropriately to whatever hardware is available, and try to balance that across your, any concurrent users that are working with it. So since I only asked for 10, hopefully soon we'll get some results. Otherwise, I can show some of the results from prior runs. I'll give it a brief. Oh, here we go. So if I view the batch results, you can see the exact values that it used for each of the parameters. I chose for some variation on the two C-arm angles here. So you can see for each of our output images, the angle is slightly different. If I open one of these and I share this tab, you can see this is a bit closer to like a raw X-ray image, or raw fluoroscopy image. So, you could put this at the back of your image processing pipeline and, work on training your ML algorithms from that. And because you've got these annotations on, what subject you were looking at when you were creating the session, you have annotated data on what all of the spatial orientation of the C-arm was for that acquisition. And so then you can pass all that spatial information downstream through your training process. So the next test case I was going to look at was, to try to illustrate the flexibility of the system, right? The back end is fundamentally just trying to simulate these X-rays, right? For the visualization, we are using the C-arm just because the interactivity is very helpful there, but you don't strictly have to generate C-arm images. one of the parameters that we can vary is the source to detector distance. So, this is the distance between your X-ray tube and the detector, right? So if you had a like a flat panel X-ray, that would be significantly higher. So I'll bump that up to 1800, 1.8 meters. And then you can also change the detector diameter. So that's just the size of the panel, right? Um, so if I increase that to 431 millimeters is a standard size. You can see now the field of view on the right has changed, right? And so if we lower this down a bit, you can see that much more of the torso is in view. So here, this is the hip data set for reference if you try to play with this on your own browser. Um, so here we can try to mimic like an AP radiograph, right? So here we would want to rotate so that the detector is behind the patient. And then here we'd want to raise the C-arm up to be, centering that in the view. And as before here, because we're not really trying to mimic the C-arm rotations, we probably wouldn't choose any variance in the rotation parameters, but we certainly would want variance in the positioning parameters, and we can have quite a bit higher variance here. And so once again, I'll generate 10 images and submit that run. Um,
Hey, David, there's a
yeah,
question that came in. So to be able to use X-ray Genius, the one you're showing, is there any hardware requirement from the user side?
um, so it runs in the browser, right? All of the really intensive operations occur in the backend. So the actual X-ray simulation and machine learning inference and all that. There are, I mean, you are doing some rendering in the browser. So, here we have some listed minimum requirements. You can get away with less than this, um, but, it might not be as interactive or responsive, right, if more is going on. The short version is, Chrome and a dedicated GPU of some kind will get you there. It's
Okay.
not, you know, you can get by without it.
All
All
right.
of the hard work happens in the back end.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Um, so with that, here we can view the batch results here, and you know, let's just pick one of these arbitrarily. You can kind of see again, it's got that sort of raw X-ray image that you can feed upstream in your pipeline, and again, you've got all of the same parameters annotated for each one. So here, you've got between each image, exactly what the offset spatially was between those acquisitions, and you can feed that to your model. Those are the two, kind of sample cases that I wanted to look at. I think they kind of illustrate the broad capabilities. If people have specific questions, be to address that
So,
or demo it.
so there's a question that came in. The question is, does it cost anything? Is there a way to run it on our own cloud? Is there CT or MRI option? Thank you for that question. Right now, you need because this is X-ray image, X-ray simulation. You need a CT image, and maybe David, you can maybe go back and show when you start a new simulation session,
Mhm.
then you have to pick a CT. So right here, when you choose a sample data, or choose files to upload, it has to be a CT image. So the X-ray simulation is done from a CT image. So that was an answer for the first question. The second question, does it cost anything? So right now we are you can create a free account on and I'll show the URL again at the end. Yeah, you can create a free account and generate synthetic images with limited options. So currently we're allowing limited simulation sessions. just because we have one service, one server that's running. Now, uh, we're looking into actually collecting feedback from users like you, where depending on how you like to use X-Ray Genius in your workflow, in your projects, we can be able to help you find the right way to do it, right? One way could be a sort of customized version of X-Ray Genius that can be deployed on your own private cloud or on your premise, or it could be a system that you can run separately. So that's one option here. Another option we're also looking at is if there are a lot of users and looking at generating a huge amount of extra images, we will be also looking into subscription-based service as well. But that depends on the need out there for potential users. So, but that was a good question. So any other questions before we switch back to me? Any scenario folks wants David to give it a quick try? All right. So
I saw a question came in about I want to use this tool to help find corresponding points between a CT scan and fluoro images. Is that a feature that might come in later? Um, I think this is a very good use case for X-ray Genius because you do have this, you know, for each image, if assuming that your fluoro images are distortion corrected, you have this exact spatial information of how the detector was oriented relative to the CT. Um, and so all of that information is there that you can feed into your, either use it directly or you could feed it into a model for some type of inference um, later on. So I think that's, X-Ray Genius is not filling the role of taking annotations of what those corresponding points might be, but it does give you that, the image and the spatial relationship to the volume that you can use for any downstream training. Thank you.
all right.
I'll
Yeah.
hand it back to you, Andinet.
Okay. Thank you, David. Um, all right. So, and some of this already came up in the during the Q&A interaction. So, what are our plans for X-Ray Genius? Currently, we have the deep DRR simulation backend that is implemented, but it has a flexible architecture. So we would like to implement additional simulation options, and one of them is this Monte Carlo simulation from actually it's an open source software that was implemented as part of FDA, and this is a more realistic and high fidelity simulation approach. Obviously, it's very computationally expensive, takes a lot of time. However, with the scalable architecture that we have in X-Ray Genius, some folks might find the Monte Carlo simulation backend better than Deep DRR. Deep DRR is fast and it's interactive, so it's a good trade-off between fidelity and speed. But if speed is not an issue, however, you're looking for a high quality, high fidelity, realistic X-ray images, the Monte Carlo simulation backend will be a better option. So, these are the type of things we are planning to do, but we would like to hear from, uh, you know, potential users out there in the community if this Monte Carlo simulation backend would be useful for their work. Then the other series of additions that we're looking at doing is adding support for implant planning and minimally invasive procedures, right? So here, how would you want to do implant planning within the X-ray Genius user interface, right? And this would allow surgeons to optimize implant placement for various procedures, right? So that's one of the things we'll be looking at. And then for different minimally invasive procedures, how do we add support for stents, catheters, and biopsy needles within the X-ray Genius user interface, right? So that would be useful for enabling precise trajectory planning and surgical guidance. And then, lastly, we'll be looking at how do we, extend, right now, in the case of deep DRR, the way it does material decomposition is limited. So how can we extend that and improve it to handle different types of metals and polymers that are usually found in implants? So there's a scattering modeling that's already available in deep DRR, but it has some limitations. So in some of the use cases that we talk to some potential users, they're looking at to have a more accurate modeling of some of the scattering artifacts, but that would require additional extension improvements to deep DRR and obviously to X-ray Genius. Okay. So just to can just wrap up on the future work. These are the type of additional support that we plan to implement in the future. We haven't made any prioritization in terms of which ones we want to tackle first. So we would love to hear from you and potential users which particular features that you'd find to be useful for your research project. And that way, we will look at doing better prioritization. All right. So just so as we wrap up today's session, I would like to highlight how you can try X-ray Genius and how you can be involved with improving X-ray Genius. Right. First, it's you can go ahead and create a free account on app.xraygenius.com. So as David demonstrated, there are pre-packaged sample data that's part of X-Ray Genius, and you'll be able to, and these are CT scans that are sample data that we've gotten from publicly available database with the right licensing. So yeah, you could use those sample data and play around with the different features of X-Ray Genius, and that will give a good sense of the workflow within the application. And this particular managed service is running on AWS as we described earlier. Now, in some cases, you would be interested in, for example, um, in, adding some new features to X-Ray Genius, right? And this can be in different ways. One, the current workflow that we have implemented might not fit well with your workflow, right? And we will be able to customize it, right? So that's one way we can help. Second, as we indicated, the simulation backend is flexible. If you have a different simulation backend that you want to integrate within X-Ray Genius, we can help you do that as well. And also, the user interface right now uses Volview. Volview is our web-based visualization application that is built using VTK.js, the visualization toolkit, JavaScript library, and Volview is customizable. So, for example, in some cases, you might not be interested in some of the 3D volume rendering visualization aspect of the app. And that's something we can help customize as well. Third, you might be working on a research grant proposal or a research project where you want to use X-Ray Genius, and Kitware participates on collaborative research projects funded by the government. So we can collaborate with you and find ways to customize X-Ray Genius that can really accelerate your research project. The last one, and I already kind of described this, in some cases, customers would like to completely customize X-Ray Genius for their own internal R&D, and we can help with that as well. So X-Ray Genius can be deployed on public cloud, on public cloud, or it can be deployed on-premise, on local workstations, and we can help with that as well. So as I mentioned at the beginning, X-Ray Genius is a joint effort between the medical computing group and the data analytics group, and the data analytics group have a lot of experience in data management, workflow management, web application deployment, DevOps, and all those type of things. So if you're interested to get some help in that, we can help as well. And then lastly, uh, uh, at the bottom, I put in the link there where if you have overall inquiries about X-Ray Genius, please reach out. Reach out to www.kitware.com/contact, and then we'll be able to help. So, are there any questions, David? Um,
There was a comment about a potential use
okay,
case for this that I wanted to grab the screen share and do a quick demo. Um,
okay. I'll stop sharing here. But can you repeat the question for
yeah.
others? And
So the uh, the question was that you can synthesize a sequence of 2D X-rays rotated around the axial direction of the C arm, and then use that sequence to reconstruct 3D data. And so here I'll pick the spine sample data. And so the idea here is that you're doing a sample of images in this axis, right? So we could choose variance only in that axis and choose a very large variance. So I'll say 90 degrees. So, here we're rotating pretty much across the entire range of motion. Um, I would want, you can see here the field of view is not very big, and typical usage of a C-arm, you'd have the subject a lot closer to the detector. So to kind of compensate for that, I'll choose a larger um, sensor size. Let's do that 431 number again. Um, and I'll also increase the source of the detector distance to decrease some of the distortions. But with these parameters, now you can see on the preview the kinds of rotations that you get. And so if I generate, say 5 samples, and it's added that session to my list, and I can run it. And I'm hoping that it's fairly quick since we are kind of wrapping up, and I want to leave time for any other questions. But once we get this, we'll have that sequence of images and exact angle annotations for each one that we can feed into our reconstruction process. So here you can see the images. And so here's one that's straight on, and then here's one that's rotated a little bit. And you can see the different values. So yeah, thanks for the sort of scenario suggestion. That's great. Are there any other questions?
we do have a few more minutes if people have questions. Again, we'll be making the video recording of the webinar available to everyone, and also we'll be sharing the slides that we showed today. So yeah, I just want to say, we are currently really looking at prioritizing the next steps on X-Ray Genius. and we would love to hear from you if you have some concrete projects and concrete use cases that X-Ray Genius can be useful to you. So we'll just wait in a couple more minutes, and then we will wrap up. So I know you mentioned, David, currently. Oh, there's a question here, I believe. The question is, can you elaborate on preoperative planning scenarios and implant guidance via segmentation? Um, so the way to look at it is, if when you open up the vol view visualization, and you're visualizing the model, the volume rendering of the CT image. One of the things we're looking at is, can we add some implants and stents and those type of things within the user interface, right? And then you can be able to manually place them within the 3D visualization. And then when you're doing that, then it's going to automatically show you how it's going to be positioned and how it's going to look like on the live real-time X-ray images, right? So that way you can be able to pre-plan, right? If I have this particular spine and then implant, and I put it in a particular position, where within the 2D X-ray images it's going to show up. So that's one way to look at it in terms of the preoperative planning scenario. And I don't know if, David, if you have another example how this can be used as part of a preoperative planning as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that the general theme is you're linking the spatial information to the image, right? And so any pipeline that spatial information is relevant, which is most preoperative planning, you want to know how different geometrical features are related to each other. So, if you have a segmentation that's, a volumetric data oriented in 3D space, and you're going to say, oh, here's how that region of the image looks on C-arm images from such and such angle,
Will
you
be
know,
it.
you can generate a bunch of synthetic data
Excellent.
for training for those
Yeah,
purposes.
so yeah, we're almost running out. It's got 10 seconds. Again, thank you so much for joining the webinar. We'll be sharing all the information, and keep in touch, and yeah, and have a great day. Thank you.